and go live.
Tell me when we're ready.
I think you can call it to order anytime you're ready.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's go ahead and call it to order. I know everybody's busy. So it's Thursday, February 23rd at 12:03, and we're going to go ahead and call our communications committee meeting to order. We keep the agenda pretty basic, but it's usually fairly comprehensive in content. So let's go ahead and just, I'm sorry. We have Carl Jacobs online, Vice President Carl Jacobs online. We have member Kelly Lessons online. I'm Dora Wilson.
And President Bellamy.
And President Bellamy is also online. Thank you for that. And if everybody else in the room can just briefly introduce themselves, that'd be great.
Yeah, so MJ, Communications and External Affairs.
Sheriff Bryant, Superintendent.
Corey Ace, Anchorage, GA.
Katie Grant, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent.
Sonia Hunt, Senior Director for the Office of Equity and Community Engagement.
Awesome, thank you. So let's just kick it off with our communications update. MJ, if you want to take that.
Yeah, thanks. So the district's moving forward with engagement with the 2023 legislative session. Dr. Bryant went down and did a round of outreach to legislators and also met the governor. We have our annual fly-in this weekend, and so we'll be participating in that. It'll be Dr. Bryant and a few other staff with that. And so we're focused on the legislative priorities that the board had outlined, as well as utilizing the fast facts that we created at the legislative luncheon as well. When we go down there, we'll be taking a portion, a sample of our budget book that was approved by the school board on Tuesday. So we'll be providing that as a resource, a hard copy resource for the folks that we'll be engaging with.
Awesome. And you had also wanted to share about the bond.
Yeah, so we have some messaging. So the bond has been, the muni assigned our school bond to Proposition 1. So that was the same prop number that we had last year. So we're prop number 1 for this year. We'll move forward with our messaging plan that we did in previous years. The addition, the new nugget that will be with that this year is that the billboards that we have in place of the schools will be spread out throughout the district, not just the schools that are on the school bond, but just other strategic locations for our community to see that we have a bond on the ballot. We did a refresh of logo, so we've got a brand new school bond logo that we're debuting this year. So we'll in addition to the billboards in front of the schools, we'll have radio ads, we'll have TV ads. We'll have digital spots, and then we're planning on the hard copy mailers that'll go out. So we're going to start the messaging the week of March 6th, and that will carry through up until Election Day.
Awesome, thank you. And I should check to see if anybody online has any questions or comments, particularly about the legislative priorities and how to continue messaging to our legislators, how to continue gaining support for the increase in the BSA. Yes.
Carl and Member Jacobs and Member Lessons and Member Bellamy.
I was hoping so. So let's start with Member Jacobs, move to Member Lessons, and then President Bellamy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the report by MJ. Just a quick follow-up question on the strategy for bond outreach. Will we be putting information in either the ASD Connect newsletter or school-based newsletters for parents as well?
Yeah, we'll have a section in ASD Connect next month.
And Madam Chair, can I just a quick follow-up?
Absolutely.
I know the board has kind of had initial discussions about kind of synergizing communications from ASD Connect down to school newsletters as well. Is there any plan to have that filter down to that level or no?
Yeah, we can put that in motion as well.
Okay. Yeah, I defer to the team's judgment. Just was curious if it was in the plan. I think that there was some interest and discussion of having more synergy there. So appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, we'll tighten that up for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Member Jacobs. Member Lessons?
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate the Zoom meetings where I can be two places at once. So with respect to the visit that folks are doing in Juneau next week, I wanted to share that it sounds like additional outreach would be useful, both to folks who have previously expressed interest in supporting a substantial BSA increase, and for folks who may really still need to know more about the why. So I would encourage the team going down to really be ready to make effective cases for why education funding needs to be increased, potentially relating it to specific legislators' schools and to student outcomes. I know that Member Wilson had some really great success underscoring the scope and extent of our CTE offerings. But it does sound like we need to be really focused and committed with our ongoing messaging about really what's at stake, and quite frankly, how much we actually need. So I guess that would be my 2 cents there for those going down.
Thank you, Member Lessons. And President Bellamy?
Yes, thank you. So I also wanted to, MJ answered part of my question regarding, what will the synergy around the bond. And Member Lessons did bring up, a couple of weeks ago, we were pushing, when I say we, not just ASD, but I think the whole state was pushing hard and heavy on increasing the BSA. And I just sensed that from a conversation that I had earlier with Member Lessons, there is a sense out of Juneau that things are like lagging now. So I don't know what that means, because that's not entirely my lane of expertise. But whatever, so I guess what I would like to share with the board is for us not, whatever we can do to keep the synergy going for both the bond and our legislative priorities. I don't think we need to rest on, we can't give up now. So I think one of the things I'd like to do is maybe check in with Heather and see what her read is about what are our next steps. I know the superintendent is going. The superintendent is going next week, Monday and Tuesday, but I'm not sure what the board's next step is. So we probably need to think about that. I know Kelly and Carl are tracking almost every single bill, and that's good. But if we need to take action, if we need to elevate, then we probably need to have a way to do that. So, and I just bring that up because it seems a lot quieter around the BSA right now. And that just might be the process. That might not be that we can do anything, but I just don't know. So that's all I wanted to share.
No, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Member Jacobs.
Member Jacobs, and then Mr. Ace.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. To President Bellamy's point, we do have a potential noteworthy event coming up that I think could be an action item for us to make folks aware and drive turnout to. The Anchorage delegation is hosting a legislative town hall in town. So the legislators will be out of Juneau and local Sunday, March 5th from 2 to 4 at Rasmussen Hall, UAA. There's a Facebook event created for it. I think anyone and everyone we can direct to that location. Typically what they do is they have a general opportunity where the full delegation is available to listen to public testimony and answer questions. And then there's breakout sessions for each individual House district. And I think it would be a great starting point to make sure that it's staying top of mind. And it's the first time since session started that the majority of the caucus will be in one place outside of Juneau. So definitely circle that on your calendars.
What's that date again? March 5th?
March 5th, Sunday,
Okay.
from 2 to 4 p.m.
Thank you.
And Carl, can you repeat the location, please?
Yep, it's at Rasmussen Hall, which is on the campus at UAA. And maybe a note for Katie and or Amanda. Maybe if we could get that listed on the board calendar, that might be helpful. And I don't know, maybe a question for Dr. Brian and MJ, if we can share that on our socials, that might be relevant too.
So 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. So that's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. It's a Sunday.
And Amanda's out, but I'm happy to get that on there for.
Awesome, thank you. No, I appreciate that information. Thank you for.
Kind of all that type of stuff, and just that we need more resources to do the job you guys are asking us to. Anyway, so I have talking points. I'm working with Tom. And then the last thing, to speak to what Carl just spoke to, we are trying to set up some graphics and also try to get a big teacher turnout to the 5th, March 5th, for the Anchorage caucus.
Thank you, appreciate that. Yes, member lessons.
Thanks. I'm wondering whether, certainly because we're just the board, should we, if there is a breakout opportunity, I wonder if board members should strategically be assigned or assign themselves to meeting with specific legislators on Sunday or attending specific legislators' mini caucuses. Sort of just a thought to throw out there, whether we can be organized, I guess, and strategic about who we visit with.
MJ, you done?
Yeah, member lessons, I would recommend huddling up with Heather after we get back from the Juneau trip, because she'll have a better handle on which legislators that we need to continue to outreach to. So that would be my recommendation.
So we can put a heavier focus on those that need some more
Yes.
help getting to the
Education.
Chair Wilson.
coming to the decision. Yes,
Member Jacobs.
Member Jacobs?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on Member Lesson's comment, I like the idea in theory. I think we may want to confer with Ms. Breaks regarding if that's feasible and if that would be well received. The breakout sessions typically are intended, at least in my experience the last few years, specifically to connect with local constituents. And so if we attend those breakout sessions to districts that we actually don't live in as citizens, and use that time at all and aren't just listening, that might not be well received, is kind of my perception, but maybe Ms. Briggs has a different thought. So yeah, just putting that out there.
No, thank you for that perspective. I appreciate it. Anybody else have anything to add about legislative outreach in particular or the bond?
I'll just say, MJ, if you have any talking points you want me to consider, just throw them to me and all things that you guys are.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be down there. And then I have a question about Proposition 14. Maybe it's a different topic, but are we following that? Are you guys following that? Are you in favor of it? And that's taking the pot money and putting it into daycare and kind of early childhood and how that might impact our schools and if school facilities might be accessible for that. Have you guys been following that discussion in the community at all?
I have not been. Anybody online? Sonia, I'm sorry.
I don't have my hand up. Carl does. But
Member Jacobs just has his hand up.
Go ahead.
So Madam Chair,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Madam Chair, I think President Bellamy wrote a letter on behalf of the board to the Assembly prior to passage in support of that proposition. Maybe she wants to expand, but I just happen to know that letter or that email did go out, I believe.
I'm sorry, I had to transition to a different room. Are we talking about the early child care initiative local? Yes. So yes, we did. Dr. Brian and I did manage to get a letter of support for that. And so I'm not sure what is the specific question. Are we for it or against it?
Yeah.
We wrote we wrote a letter in support of it. The initiative, and Andy Holloman he's been really intricately involved with that, with Trevor Stores and with a former school board member. I forget his name. Oh, Eric.
Eric Croft, possibly.
Eric who?
Croft.
Yeah. Yes, Croft. Yes, you're right. So it's been around for, it wasn't ready to go last year. It is ready to go and has been approved by the Assembly this year. The board is in support of the initiative because the early foundational learning that it will provide and the care, it's really a early child care initiative, of which will give some foundational preparation to our kids and families. So I don't know if that answered the question, but sorry, I was transitioning to a different room.
It did, thank you. I'm going to let Sonia jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Chelsea Morrow was attending a lot of those early meetings regarding that. And so she's been involved as well on the staff side.
Thank you. And member lessons.
Thanks. So somebody reached out to me actually earlier this morning and shared that there is a website called Care for Kids.
Yes, Care for Kids. Mm-hmm.
And the folks helping move this forward include Ivy Sponholtz, Sarah Rasmussen, Eric Croft, Fred Dyson, Trevor Stores, and Michael Hanley. So I guess one question is, does the board want to formally support this? Or I guess maybe since President Bellamy already did write a letter of support, we already are in support as a group? Maybe if you could just clarify.
Yeah, it was written on behalf of the school board and the administration. So we are in support of it. Yeah, so I really think from all, if there are any forecasts, it should do well. I mean, it is a common need, and it's a necessary need as part to continue to not just build foundational skills for our kids, but for our economy. Parents can't work if they can't have good childcare. And I think the other, and thank you, Dr. Hunt, because yes, Chelsea was a big part of that. I don't know that. It also, United Way is also involved. So is Best Beginnings. So I think we've got most of and I do know that the Anchorage Children's Trust is supporting the campaign for that initiative. So I'm sure they'll be coming out with a list of particulars that they want people to do and or be involved in.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes. I believe member Lessons has her hand up again, or I forgot to put it down. I'm not sure. You should check.
Member Lessons, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a question. My hand is up. Thanks. I guess maybe it's a point of clarification. So my very loose understanding is if it moves forward, then $5 or $6 million of marijuana tax revenue would go to childcare and early education. Do we know if there's a particular portion of that would specifically go to ASD, or whether it would be allocated in some broader manner to early child care organizations across the municipality? Like, is there a fiscal note for ASD directly?
Member Lessons, my understanding of the way Trevor explained it to us at AEA is that ASD would have every right to those funds, but it would be through the normal grant request process.
Right, that is correct.
Right.
So nothing allocated specifically for ASD. We can just access the funds.
Yeah, that we can't count on any money, Kelly. But we can apply for grants.
So my experience with talking to legislators in Juneau, and I got to go twice with 2 different hats, which was actually very enlightening in and of itself, is to talk about our college career and life readiness goal and workforce development. Because to me, it is one and the same. We are developing our students
Are you
to
sure you
move into
put
the
that-
next. So, and that was very well received. So examples of what our CTE programs are doing, the certifications that they're offering, the biomedical programs, the construction electricity programs. I mean, that really talking about what programs are offered and how we are getting our students work ready was very well received.
We've been doing some tours of King Tech with some legislators when they're here in Anchorage to really make that visual connection to what to your point.
So which is extremely important. So the more we can get that information out there right now, because there is such a need for bodies, skilled labor, trained labor in so many different regards in the state coming forward. They're listening to that.
I don't mean, so this is Corey. I was down at DC. I got to meet with a couple of our delegate down there. And I was telling, Sullivan has never been I'm sure he's a supporter of education, but it's never been his stick. And I was trying to convince his staffers that there's actually a space for him to get behind education. And that is with the new infrastructure dollars. Wouldn't it be great if Alaska was supplying the workforce for that? We still can. We need resources to be able to get our high schoolers work ready to take on those jobs. So it's just kind of an interesting twist. If you guys ever talk to Sullivan, that's why I was trying to get him on board, and Barkowski, to make that connection, because I think there's a space for Sullivan now to come out for education specifically because he took such a lead on that bill.
And the business community right now is really listening.
Exactly.
They're not, and the more we make that connection for them, I think the more beneficial it is to ideally get our legislators on board so that they can support our education
And
systems.
that might be a good talking point even to our state legislators.
It's a huge talking point to our state legislators.
It should be our people who fill those jobs.
Dr. Hunt.
And I think that's in line with the whole message from the AE to Anchorage Economic Development Corporation luncheon, right? Was that supplying a skilled workforce to be able to take advantage of that money that's coming this way. So I think it's all aligned.
Perfect.
And making sure our students have a actual true understanding of the work opportunities in the state so that we're not losing so many to out of state. Member lessons.
Thanks. This maybe speaks to my need to go review the interim goals for the CCL goal, but how do we define workforce readiness? We have an Algebra 2 completion rate. We have graduation, on track for graduation. And I feel, and there's a financial literacy component, but what else is in our definition of workforce ready? Could somebody help me understand?
My definition may not be the educational definition. So Dr. Bryant, you want to take a stab at that? Maybe talk about the CCL work moving forward a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I think that needs to be the direction, is figuring out how do we want to measure workforce readiness. I do think that there's even potential to relook at those goals. We're ready to do that as a board. In Texas, for example, the state measures schools by percent of students getting vocational credentials or CTE licenses and that sort of thing. And it really helped districts move the needle in that direction. But that's not a part of the goals right now. But as we go to Nashville and make the connections between what we're doing in our schools and the jobs of 5 years from now and 20 years from now, then we can backwards plan and figure out how do we measure that in an interim goal for middle schoolers and high schoolers. So all that to say, I think there's a lot of work to be done on that goal. But right now, they're what you described, member lessons.
Thank you.
Thanks. I would be supportive of better understanding how we're going to measure that. So that sounds like a good conversation to have.
Anybody else online? Have any questions or comments?
No hands raised.
Okay. So we have a lot of work to do moving forward, as always. And I'm really excited that the legislators are coming through King Tech so they can actually see some of the work that's being done. And
Yeah, I'll share that. And Representative Gray, his experience was sort of like a light bulb moment, no pun intended. But it was, and so they just connected. They have the visual and they're able to sort of kind of see, that. So it's been very, very beneficial.
I had the same experience. So yesterday, I brought in a new school business partner for King Tech, and at coming there, they had no idea really what that building offered and what many of our schools offer for that matter. And leaving there, that was the one thing this person said was, why are we not shouting this from the rooftops? I had no idea that this amazing facility existed and the programs existed. And then, of course, I'm saying, they exist all through our district in so many deep levels. So how do we do that? That's always the question, right? It's one person at a time for me, but if you guys have a better idea for how do we scream that from the rooftops so that our legislators can hear it, then I'm all in. So
sounds like room for an annual end of the year report to the community. Pictures, numbers, just the message.
Member lessons.
She's on mute.
She's on mute. I sometimes struggle with mute. I understand.
Oh, sorry. Is that better? Okay. I was at a middle school open house recently because our family will be transitioning to a middle school, and we got to see some of the elective offerings. And it occurs to me, right, that some of this workforce readiness does start earlier than high school, and it's broader than just King Tech. And as we have conversations with individual legislators, it may be really relevant to show what workforce ready possibilities exist in our local neighborhood schools. Just really drill down and say, hey, for the students, attending Mears, these are the things that they can engage in. For the students attending Mirror Lake, this is what they're doing, or at Handshoe or at Golden View, because there really are some extraordinary offerings that promote this readiness and student engagement at the same time. So I think that there's maybe value for a little bit more show and tell beyond just King Tech, which is absolutely a gem. But I would like folks to understand that this happens across the district, right? And is available right at their neighborhood school.
So member lessons, one of the flyers that I was handing out to legislators, I don't know if I actually gave you one, is a list of all of the offerings at all of the schools throughout the district. So it's that.
Yes, I remember that, but I just, there's also something really magical about bringing somebody into a classroom. So this is me just thinking and talking at the same time, but if there are ways that we could, invite the senators and representatives who are connected to a specific school, to Mears or to Handshoe or to Golden View, or to Clark and to Begich, right? To see those, let's go see Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so's, fourth period class in action. I think that there's so much value in that boots on the ground experience where they can soak it in. That is maybe more enriching. I mean, what you shared was awesome, Dora. But I guess I would be excited to hear about more legislators being invited into our classrooms specifically.
No, I appreciate that, because once they actually get to experience it, it is a whole different ballgame. President Bellamy.
Yes, thank you. So just a couple of comments. One, a CTE update is on our work session agenda. I don't know, it's going to be in the near future. I guess I caution us to just to be careful that we are in spreading the word, the news, and celebrating CTE, that we don't have people believing that everything is available everywhere, because it is not. Some schools, King Tech provides a level of equity for kids no matter where they are to get access. We don't really know. I don't know. I can't tell you as I sit here exactly what's going on in the other high schools, although I know something is going on. And from my conversation with Missy Fraze, who is the guru of these things, I think we really need to understand where those pathways are, because there are pathways even for sixth graders, because in our district, sixth graders are in the middle school. There are pathways in each middle school, and there are pathways and opportunities in each high school and middle school. So I think the board needs to understand what that is before we start engaging in conversations that might lead people to expect that from their home school. And so all the schools are different. The goal is the same, but how we reach the goal and how people are managing to use their resources is different for some of our schools. So I will try to move the CTE update up. I'll speak with Dr. Bryant, see if we can't move that up so that we are all operating from where we are and where the team is and doing all the planning. Thanks.
No, thank you for that perspective. I appreciate it. Hence the robust conversations. I love it. So did anybody else have any other comments about communications? MJ, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well,
Communications front?
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to touch base since the vote moved forward on Tuesday. We are moving forward with our messaging for the Abbott Loop community and those families based on Dr. Bryant's vision on how he wants us to really wrap them up and make sure that we are taking care of them through this process. So that's actually the theme that we're moving forward with, is called Taking Care of You. We are, the schools themselves are doing their outreach on that level, keeping it that connectivity. There'll be some correspondence being sent out this afternoon from Abbott Loop to those families on what next steps are occurring. Some of that will include where the students will be attending next year, as well as 2 open houses planned next month, one at Cassoon and one at Trailside. So we assisted in with the principals to provide that communication support, but they really want to take ownership of their zone. And I'm a big fan of that because they know their community better than the district in this circumstance. So we're just there to support. And so they're going to take the lead from now until spring break. And then when spring break is concluded, we'll come back and huddle up with the 3 principals and have a conversation on what their additional communication needs are. We will be developing a website or webpage for those families and staff, but there's an internal line going on with staff for this project. But we're going to take the approach that we did for the Ursa Major. I think, was it Ursa Major, right? Ursa Major at the beginning of the school year. So taking that approach with having a web page dedicated to providing those resources to help navigate through this process.
And do we have dates for those open houses yet?
Yes, we do. And I want to say March 5th and 6th, but let me just double check on that. One will be at Cassoon and one will be at Trailside, both in the evenings. So I'll offline and get that information to Amanda and pass it on.
Thank you. Did anybody have any comments or questions?
Word Connect.
Oh,
Yeah,
Word
okay.
Connect.
That goes out tomorrow.
Word Connect.
Okay, yep.
Any other questions or comments online? No hands? Okay. Thank you for that update. Do you have anything else?
Yes. Yes, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Love the formalities. Okay. And anybody else have any questions about communications? Any additional comments before we move on? Hands. Awesome. So I do want to add that we will every month, if Dr. Hunt is okay with attending, or for every communications committee meeting, I should say, we're going to have the communications update, of course, by MJ, but we want to make sure that we include our community engagement update as well. So I I know there was some discussion at some point about possibly changing the name to include communication, community engagement, but I'm sorry.
No, I have information on that.
Oh, okay.
Amanda did draft up a change to the policy, and so
That's where that came from.
yes.
Governance today.
Yes,
Well-
and so I have a copy of it for the governance committee if you'd like to see it.
Although in some conversation, we might just go ahead and just keep it as communications committee meeting, because that would be a very long extension of our meeting, but all communication information will come through this meeting. So I know there was a little confusion with governance as to whether or not we were going to split into having a communications committee as a community engagement committee.
I think the way that Amanda understood it, and the way that it was
Can I,
just a rename, and it could be for discussion.
President Bellamy, I just wanted to make sure we discussed it now before governance. Yes. President Bellamy, you had.
Yeah, so somehow in all of my drama, I missed that this was coming forward. First of all, I think it's very clear. I think the district has its community engagement path, and the board is in sync with that path, right? So we can either join or not join certain district events, especially when when it's part of our shared a goal for whatever the event is. So I'm not sure that it is necessary. I mean, I guess we can discuss why that needs to take place. Communications committee controls the communication from the board to the public. We have a community engagement calendar that we have as a board, and I don't know that we need another committee to do the work and ask board members to attend another committee meeting. I do like the updates coming from the district at every meeting. That gives us an opportunity to not just know what's going on, but to decide what role, if any, that the board will play. But I don't know, shifting to a name change, while it may be a minor policy change, I just don't. That's not the role of the communications committee. If you really read what our role is, it is to decide what communications are going to the community. Whether or not we participate should be driven by our own calendar. Granted, the budget has kind of put that on the side, but I don't know that we need to. If that's unless it's the will of the board, then so be it. But personally, I would not be voting to change the name of the committee. I think once a standing item on the agenda can be community engagement, either board and or district. Other than that, I don't think we need to change our policies to regarding how we communicate.
Member Lessons had her hand up, but she took it down.
Member Lessons, do you have your hand up or down?
It was up, now it's down.
Okay, just clarify.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to just clarify, because I think I briefly heard President Bellamy say it's a new committee, but I think I understand it to be just renaming the existing committee.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay. As a point of clarification, and we'll have a discussion in 20 minutes on that.
So I'm actually good either way, but I just wanted to clarify that we will be having both the communications update and community engagement update as part of the communications committee meeting.
And that's great. I mean, sorry, Madam Chair, may I?
Of course.
Frankly, I don't know that we have enough stamina to add another. I think what you want to do, I think the intent is to make sure we give adequate coverage to our community engagement, because that's an important piece for this board. It has not always been that important to prior boards. It is important to this board. I get it. I don't want to change policy just because this board feels like it wants to do more of something, or it could be less of something, right? So to focus on the committee's intent, which is to decide on what is communicated to the public. I think we can update ourselves, use the agenda at our meetings to update ourselves and the district as to what events are taking place, how might the board be engaged, and much like what we talked about earlier with when Carl shared that we were going to be that the constituents were going to be having something on March 5th. So when we get those things, we decide how we want to be involved, but that does not negate the district from keeping its event calendar going the way it needs to have it going. So I just think we need to make sure we keep some space between board activities and district activities. Sometimes they will be the same. Most times they will not. So I'm not for changing the policy, but I am for including a more focused, as we do our committee business through communications, maybe having that as a standing item on the agenda, much like what MJ did today and what Dr. Hunt did today. If we can have that kind of update every single meeting, every meeting that we have, which might not be every month, but we will have meetings. So that's just my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate the perspective. Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and actually, I just want to be aware of time and also give Dr. Hunt the opportunity for her to speak to give us an update about community engagement.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Briefly, I'll just share 2 updates. So there has been an uptick in community presence with the presence of an ASD table and staff covering it. The purpose of it is really twofold. So it's two-way communication on school district matters when interfacing with the community and engaging on volunteerism. At times, there's also engaging on recruitment efforts. There is some crossover. It includes events like crossover that may cross over with the equity work to include the most recent Rasmussen Foundation meeting around digital equity, where our office was like the convener and getting internal stakeholders to participate and be of assistance and to be thought partners with the digital equity initiative that will ultimately benefit our students. The second part of the report is really about MECAC. Since our last meeting, we had a January session. The MECAC structure has changed. Again, we want to promote two-way communication. And so we invited a community partner, United Way 211. The presenter was the Chief Operating Officer, Sue Brogan. I believe Madam Chair was in attendance at the meeting. And so our next meeting is March 30th, where we'll have a presentation from a community organization, the Polynesian Association of Alaska, with Lucy Hansen presenting. Again, all of these efforts are to make sure that we increase the two-way communication between the district and the community. And that concludes my report, barring any questions.
Thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate hearing about what the district is doing for their community engagement, community outreach. Does anybody online have any questions or comments? Yes, President Bellamy.
Just a question for Dr. Hunt. Is there which of those items that you discussed, I think I did see the digital literacy. I did see an invite for that. What role would you like the board to play?
At this time, that committee really is an exploratory committee on a prospective initiative around digital equity, and it's actually across the state of Alaska. The convening, it was one of three calls, really, or Zoom meetings around what would be the needs of 7 various populations within town. So one included English language learners. So that's why I included Director Bobby Lafferty. Naturally, because digital equity is inclusive of technology, I also shared that with Chief Fleckenstein, who also had people in attendance. And so as it unfolds, we can certainly share more and share where the board could be certainly helpful in providing insight on one of those 7 target populations of this initiative.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions or comments online? No, we're good. Anybody in the room? Does anybody have any final comments or questions that they want to throw out there? Otherwise, we're going to adjourn and everybody gets to go back to work a little early. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys all for being here. Very much appreciate it. Great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.